quickly. And our first one on the docket is SB 182, requiring electronic filings of campaign reports by candidates for state offices unless an exemption is granted for cause. And Jason, are you with us? Can you give us an update?
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Senate Bill 182 does amend a statute in the Campaign Finance Act. Currently, that statute requires treasurers or candidates for statewide office to file their treasurer reports electronically with the Secretary of State. Senate Bill 182 would amend that to require those reports be filed electronically for any candidate for state office. And state office is defined to include not only offices elected on a statewide basis, but also members of the House of Representatives, state senators, and members of the State Board of Education, district judges, district magistrate judges, and district attorneys. And so treasurers for all the candidates for those offices would be required to file the reports electronically. There is, however, an option for the Kansas Governmental Ethics Commission to grant a request for an exemption if there is cause shown to be exempted from that requirement. The bill would go into effect on July 1st if enacted, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Jason? All right. Well, we have one proponent today. Mark Skoglund, Executive Director, Kansas Governmental Ethics Commission. Welcome to the committee, Mark, and for coming across to us.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairwoman, members of the committee. I very much appreciate the opportunity to be here, not just because this has been our #1 recommendation for several years now, but because having an opportunity to discuss this issue with the Senate, make sure that we're covering all our bases and making sure that everyone's on the same page. So what this legislation does is it requires all candidates for state office to file electronically. Now, statewide candidates have been doing this for over a decade with no real issues, even when they're uploading 400-page reports. So statewide candidates have been doing this for quite some time. We've had a little bit of a trial balloon then, you could say, that has tested this out. As of today, or at least as of last year, I haven't checked the numbers this year, 42 states currently require all state candidates to file electronically. Now, the main reason why that is because of the major efficiency benefits that are accrued from electronic filing that I'll talk about. But I'll note that Kansas is one of the remaining 8 states that allows paper filing for state office. Now, what this would do is a few major items. We think that there's a number of benefits that we can accrue, but we're going to talk about 3. The first is there is absolutely not a single candidate for the legislature who has ever gotten a mail from the Governmental Ethics Commission and been excited about it. We understand that that is our role. It's either a deadline that is upcoming that we're reminding them of, or more commonly, it's something telling them that they've made a mistake on a campaign finance report. No one likes that, and electronic filing, what a lot of paper filers don't realize is that electronic filing already has some checks built into it to prevent some of the most common errors. For example, there are a number of issues that some of the most common issues are when people leave names and addresses off of reports. When you're electronic filing, you can't do that. It won't let you enter that without that field being entered. Additionally, there's a number of very common items that result in errors and omissions reports being necessary that could be checked by an electronic filing system. So for example, when an ending balance on a previous report is not the same as the beginning balance on the next report, we know as a fact that either something has been double counted or there's money that's just not being reported. We know that there's an error the moment that happens. And an electronic filing system could easily check for that. So many of the most common errors and omissions items are things that an electronic filing system either already checked for or could be created to check for. So reducing errors and omissions notices is something that I think would be a major benefit to a lot of candidates. And at this point, I definitely want to make this point as well. Our goal is not to make any added barrier for anyone. It is certainly my position that that nobody should be prohibited from running for office solely because they lack internet. And as a result, this legislation includes a provision that if someone doesn't have reliable internet access or any other reason that they can show cause why they can't electronically file, all they have to do is make that showing to our office and we can grant a waiver. So most people would be filing electronically, And a few people who lack reliable internet or anything like that could simply request a waiver for cause. Easy as that. Most of the recent states that have adopted this requirement have also included that similar waiver. The second major benefit is simply campaign finance transparency. Now, right now, what happens after campaign finance reports are posted, we scan them, we upload them, and we start assessing that data. About 2 months after the election is over, we are able to compile all the aggregate data, which means that aggregate data from campaign finance reports is not public for months after the fact. To take Oklahoma as one particularly good example, they've had an electronic filing system for a while, and the day after campaign finance reports are due, they can publish aggregate data 2 months quicker, which is a substantial benefit. Now, obviously, there's a number of other transparency benefits here as well. The public has a right to that data, and being able to actually view it in a meaningful way is certainly important. But campaign finance transparency means that what we can do with an electronic filing system allows us to publicize that data in a meaningful way much quicker than we do today. The last item is not last because it is necessarily least important, but it is certainly something that I want to make sure we address as well. The cost and efficiency. In our office right now, when a report is filed, it is scanned, uploaded to our website. Then we code every single line to determine whether it is a PAC, out-of-state business, an individual, anything like that. Compile and add that data together and publicize that. And then every single line on those reports is individually hand entered into a database. Every single line. Only after all of that data entry is accomplished, which does take months, can we even begin conducting reviews of reports. Now, this is a particular problem in that when we have an election, because we have a report due in October and we have a report due in January, we are often not even beginning the desk review process for the October reports until the January deadline is already approaching. This means that people aren't being notified of errors occurring on their October reports until after the January report is over. So this means they have 2 reports now that they have to amend. This becomes a rather sizable problem when we also compare the universe where it takes months to do this data entry before doing these reports to a system where electronic filing is the norm. If electronic filing is the norm, what we can do is simply take the raw data as it's entered the day after it's been submitted, paste it into our database, and months of data entry is accomplished in about 15 seconds. That is a rather substantial efficiency benefit for our office, and certainly would be a major benefit to candidates, but it is not possible without this statute. I can certainly take any questions.
Thank you, Mark. I know you always touch on this when you give us your update to the committee, so that was much better in depth that we understand. I do have some questions, but I'll see if the committee has any questions for you. Senator Fascido.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, will this just, in this legislation, will it just require candidates or others who have to submit a report to you when filing like PACs? Will they be required? And then, Madam Chair, the other quick question is, so, and then you've updated your system to whereas it would allow our treasurers to save information and go back and add? Thank you.
Sure. So I'll take the second question first. The second question, the Secretary of State handles that system. They're the repository of that data, and they handle that system. Their IT team is excellent. I don't want to pre-commit them to making any changes or anything like that, but I'm sure that they can answer any questions about what the current state of that system is. As for,
I'm just saying, though, if this legislation is saying we would be required, except with that exemption, for those who may have a treasurer that handwrites their report, if you're requiring us to do this, it needs to be easier for our treasurers to save and add information later.
Certainly,
right?
of course. Yep, I agree that that's something that would be important. I think that in general, the more user-friendly a system is, the more likely people are to be comfortable using it. And I know they've made a lot of adjustments over the years, and they've added and made things a little better in certain respects. I don't know specifically about the saving data. I can find that out for you and get back to you. And I can determine also if that's, if it's not currently in place, I can determine if that's something they're working on. I do think that would be important to be able to save data and come back to it, because not everyone wants to work in an Excel sheet and just upload the Excel sheet, though that'd be what I would do, but I know that that's not everyone's preference. As for PACs, this legislation would only apply to state candidates. It wouldn't, we're not expanding that to PACs and parties.
Senator Fasquedo, I've also asked the Secretary of State's office to join us, so we can ask them also about their progress on their new program they're working with, and they're the pass-through entity that gets 2 marks. So that's where the database is that we use. So anyone else have questions, Mark? Senator Warren.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for appearing again today. I'm sure folks listening online might want to follow up with a question regarding your last statement, why the proposal isn't to also include PACs and parties to file electronically as well.
Sure. Primarily when we're talking about the delays in desk reviews and things like that, we're primarily talking about problems with candidates. A lot of PACs already file electronically. And when we're talking about parties filing electronically, we then are talking about things like central committees, which often are, I mean, that's more local than what the statute is intended to address. So for our purposes, our primary concern is candidates. If people wanted to expand it to PACs, of course, we wouldn't object. But our primary concern was making sure that state candidates file electronically. Most states that do have an electronic filing mandate have the same requirement of PACs as well. So it's not uncommon to see that.
All right, thank you for that information. I appreciate the answer. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator McGinn.
So have you guys ever thought about giving classes to these potential candidates or elected officials that are transitioning? And, you know, I finally figured it out, but I am frustrated a little bit with your drop-down categories. And I'd like to have more freedom and flexibility to truly describe what it is that I purchased or whatever. So have you guys thought about doing, I mean, and now that we're in the day of Zoom and WebEx, you guys wouldn't even, I mean, you could just tell those candidates, we're going to teach a class, sign up. A lot easier today with the electronics that we have now, or the ability for audio visual.
I can't actually tell you how excited I am to have that question, because it gives me an opportunity to point out we are in the process of developing a multi-stage training system that, again, is going to be conducted electronically. We've got a training program that my first priority is state employee ethics, because right now there's a number of state employees across Kansas who have never had an ethics training, mostly because they don't live in Topeka. And we can't always drive out to, say, Dodge City or wherever else to be able to give an in-person training. But this, now that we have, I mean, if we're going to be in the middle of a pandemic, we may as well take the opportunity to create electronic training. The second stage of that is campaign finance, which will have separate entities for electronic filing and paper filing. So that's exactly our goal, is to create these trainings so that we can help walk people through all of these scenarios, not just to understand the law, but frankly, to make life easier on everyone's treasurers. But thank you very much for the question.
Mark, what's the percentage? I know you told us in your annual report to us, but what's the percentage of House members and senators who already file electronically?
About 3/4 of senators do, and about 2/3 of House do. 29 senators do, 11 do not. 86 representatives do, and 39 do not.
I remember that being a fairly high number in the Senate too, as well.
Yep, that number has gone up certainly in recent years. That number was about 50-50 not very long ago. So I think we're definitely seeing a trend that more people are seeing some of those benefits of a system that automatically checks some of their errors for them.
And we do understand that someone has to go back and re-enter that information when you get it in. Do you receive faxes, or are they emailed to you or faxed to you when they're not electronically uploaded?
We do sometimes receive faxes. We receive, every once in a while, someone will send an email. Someone will walk in a report, they'll mail them in. Part of the problem also too, when someone mails in a report, is that if it's not certified, which almost no one certifies their mail, then it sometimes, especially with mail delays, doesn't reach us until significantly after the fact. And that means that they're receiving a civil penalty just because of mail delays, which is something that could be easily avoided as well.
Tell me about your Excel spreadsheet, and I see Katie is with us from the Secretary of State's office. I upload an Excel spreadsheet, a form that's already created. It will not allow me to submit it if I haven't corrected a cell just properly. Usually I'm tabbing through and not using the drop-down box is my biggest error. But do you receive other Excel forms that are not formatted how we have to format with the Secretary of State's form?
Sure. So every once in a while, someone will send in, they'll just attach to an email, an Excel spreadsheet, or they will simply mail in a printed out Excel spreadsheet. We've seen this a few times. I will tell you that the most common error on those is that the font size is about 3-point. We need a magnifying glass to see it. But that's fairly common in that situation. We don't actually, when we receive the Excel spreadsheet that way, we're not checking to make sure that the columns have anything other than what is required to be there. The order of them doesn't matter to us when it's just sent in that way. Now, I know that the Secretary of State system has to, when you're uploading it, has to be aligned in a particular way so that it records it properly. But obviously, when someone's just sending us an Excel spreadsheet otherwise, we don't see that.
I think I have a question for Katie. Would you mind, Katie Coble from Secretary of State's office, could you answer a few questions about it to us with the updated program you're working with? Because I think these two items are hand in hand. If we want to entice the other 25% of us to use electronic, we need to make it user-friendly and not scary for treasurers. I do my own myself with my treasurer, but tell us your progress on what you're doing and the current form that we all are using, but that's already formatted Excel, which we send in. Can you give us a few comments, Katie?
Sure. Good morning, Madam Chair. I'm Katie Copal, Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for Communications and Policy. I will provide kind of a general overview as to where we stand with our migration coming off the current AS400 system. And then I will turn it over to our Elections Director, Brian Caskey, who can more directly answer some of the questions that the committee has already had this morning. Secretary Schwab has appeared before this committee now for 3 sessions. And as part of his comments, he has routinely updated you all on our migration from the AS400 system. If you recall, this is a very old system that still operates. Think black screen, green letters. Our office is in the process of migrating off of that onto a new, more updated server, excuse me, I cannot speak this morning. It's a multi-year project. We are on track to complete it sometime around mid-year 2022. It is a very lengthy process where we have to, essentially our IT staff, they're incredible, but they have to reprogram everything just because of the discrepancy between the old system and the new system. So we are progressing nicely with it. Our big ask is the current system is able to handle the legislation you all are discussing today. We just respectfully ask that you make no major changes until we have fully migrated off that AS400 system, just because the reality is anytime we have to make adjustments, it's going to take resources away from completing that project. And then we would have to essentially do it again to get it ready for the new system. So we're really pleased with how the progress is going. We know it's something you all are eager to do, and in full disclosure, it is I'm sorry, I just lost my train of thought. We have also been visiting with candidates, the political parties, many of you, as to what you would like to see that might make the system a little bit more friendly in the future. So we're happy to keep having those conversations. And in full disclosure, the project is slated to be completed in the 2023 fiscal year. So there's so those of you who sit on the budget committees, we just wanted to make sure you saw the parity in my statement there. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Brian so he can answer a little bit more of your questions, and we're happy to be available.
Good morning, Brian. It's good to see you.
You as well, Madam Chair. Thank you. With your permission, I'd like to address, I think, the 3 questions that have come up, as well as answer anything else that anyone may have.
Yes,
First-
go ahead.
Thank you. First, our current system does allow you to save as you go. You create an account, you can begin adding information to the account and save it without having to submit the report, and you can do that all year long at any point in time. So the system currently allows you to save as you go without submitting the final report until the deadline has reached and you're ready to submit. Second, when it comes to the drop-down boxes, those currently are hardwired to match the requirements that the Ethics Commission needs under state law. We are happy, Senator, to begin to talk with Mark and make sure the categories map are consistent with the law. And if there's any adjustments we can make that make it easier on you, we're happy to do so. So I will talk with Executive Director Skoglund after this meeting and see where we are. But they are currently hard-coded in to meet the requirements of the law as well as the requirements that GEC has. And then third, I believe you also asked about training for candidates. If this bill becomes law, absolutely, our office will conduct training sessions for all candidates. We currently work with statewide candidates on a one-on-one basis because it's a smaller number and we know exactly who they are. With candidates for State House and State Senate, there will be exponentially more, and we are committed to offering training sessions on how to use the online system if this bill becomes law. So those are the 3 questions I had written down. I'm happy to answer anything else anyone may have.
Does anyone have any questions for the Secretary of State's office? Well, I could say, Brian and Katie, I think it's important that your 2 agencies work together to get this right for us. And I heard you say that, Brian, so that's important. And also someone who uses your system to make it, I can deal with Excel. And I do like not getting nasty grams from the ethics of something so simple that I've done, but to catch that in advance, that makes it easier for everyone.
Sure.
But I think it's important that you are making it user-friendly and so that folks aren't afraid to tackle it. I think Excel can be kind of intimidating, especially how it's formatted, but it's very logical after you use it a few years. And I'm kind of used to it now. I still don't get it perfect the first time, I can tell you this. But we do appreciate you all working together and starting the conversation, Mark. We're happy to have this hearing for you so we can see the progress we're making. It sounds like we're a tad premature, but it sounds like you're all on the same track, which is encouraging for us as well. Did you have a question, Senator Francisco?
No, just before we finish this hearing, I had a comment for Mr. Skoglund, and that is that there is one letter that I have been very delighted to receive from the Government Ethics Commission office, and that is a letter saying how good a job my treasurer has been doing. So I just want you to be aware that there are some letters you send out that are appreciated.
Our heart doesn't stop when we get the envelope, right? So I think, well, Senator Warren.
Thank you, Madam Chair. With the effective date, is everything going to be up and ready and running? This says the effective date will be when it's published in the statute book. And I guess you guys will be up and running with the Secretary of State ready to handle all this and.
Right, so currently the system already can allow electronic filing, so it's set up for people to electronically file if they would like. In terms of, I know that the Secretary of State's immigration, I know they just said that it's set up and ready for people to continue electronically filing, but certainly we don't want to delay that migration at all. So if the Secretary of State's office would encounter any delays because of this requirement, I don't know what would cause that necessarily, but certainly they're the experts on that. If it would cause any delays, we'd be happy to have the implementation date changed until whenever that migration is completed, or when perhaps after the next electoral cycle, for example. We're fine with a future implementation date.
Madam Chair, I think Secretary of State's office was indicating they might like to speak if that's.
Yes. Katie, were you going to comment?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair and Senator Warren. Thank you for seeing my hand raising. I'm sorry if we were unclear. Director Skoglund is correct. The system is currently set up to do what this bill would require. We would not need a delayed implementation date. However, if the requirements were to significantly change, that's when we would respectfully ask for a delayed implementation date. But everything in the bill before you today, our office has the current capabilities to do.
Mark, would you like to comment?
And also, I just would like to say, we do work very closely with the Secretary of State staff, and I'm very lucky to have the staff I have in my office, but certainly every time I work with the Secretary of State staff, whether it's the IT team, all the way up to both Brian and Catherine. I mean, it's an incredible team they have over there that we always like working with. So definitely appreciate that coordination.
And I agree. I want to second that too. Every time working with your office and the Secretary of State's office, very helpful to candidates and treasurers, at least in our experience. So I appreciate all that you guys do. And it gets real busy by the time those deadlines are coming around for both of your offices, I'm sure. And it's always very polite and professional and helpful. So thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Any other questions? All right. Well, Brian and Katie, thanks for joining us and giving us an update on your system too. And I'm hoping it's pretty with bright colors and bells and whistles, and it's friendly to use and not intimidating. So thank you. We're anxious to see. When you're ready to do a demo, I imagine we would be happy to see it.
Thank you. It will be a benefit to everyone, business services, elections, everyone who uses this office. It will be a major improvement.
Well, thank you very much. And any other questions for Mark? I don't have any listed opponents or proponents or neutrals, so we'll close the hearing. And thank you for coming over, Mark, and updating us, and we'll let you know the progress that the committee looks at this. So thank you very much. So that closes the hearing on Senate Bill 182. Our last hearing today, and it should go fairly quickly because we certainly have heard this before and know the topic, and I think we've got it perfected pretty well. So it's HB 2049, substitute for House Bill 2049 by Committee on Judiciary, prohibiting a public agency from charging a fee for records requested for an audit by the Legislative Division of Post Audit. So Jason, can you give us an update?
Yes, Madam Chair, members of the committee, House Bill 2049 basically would enact the same policy the committee heard in Senate Bill 17. This is basically prohibiting public agencies from charging a fee for a records request submitted by the Legislative Post Audit and performing its audit functions. The difference is 2049 would amend a statute in the Legislative Post Audit Act 46-1114. And you can see the amendment on page 2 of the bill at the bottom with the language there prohibiting a public agency from charging any fee for copies or access to records requested by the division. This was the same amendment that this committee considered and I believe adopted on Senate Bill 17 just last week. You just see it here now in a clean form and substitute for House Bill 2049.
Thank you, Jason. Seeing no questions, Justin, would you like to come speak to us? And I know you just were here last week. This is Justin Stowe, Legislative Post Auditor. So welcome back. You can join us anytime.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Because I have appeared before you many times now on this same topic, I'll be very brief. We provided a one-page testimony. This concept is supported by the Post Audit Committee. We think it's good legislation to help ensure that we have no barriers to the audits we perform on your behalf. Of course, if we ask for these records under the Kansas Open Records Act, we would, like any other agency, pay the fees. This is specific to when we are doing an audit. So, Madam Chair, happy to answer any questions the committee may have. Happy to be here to support the bill.
I don't see any questions. So, Justin, this is identical to SB 17 that you were comfortable with last week after we amended. And
that's correct, Senator.
Any other questions? All right. Let's see. Hang around just in case. And we have written Proponent, Emily Bradbury, Executive Director, Kansas Press Association. And we have one neutral, Deborah Barnes, Staff Attorney, the League of Kansas Municipalities. Welcome, Deborah.
Thank you, Chairman. Deborah Barnes, Staff Attorney at the League of Kansas Municipalities. We've been here before, and I thank the committee and in particular Senator Francisco for paving the way with the amendment last week. This makes sense. So the legislative post-audit is asking for this in relation to their audit functions, so it falls naturally under this statute rather than under CORA. And we went through all the reasons for that the last time. So I'm happy to answer any questions, but we're just here to say that we're happy with the way this has come out.
Any questions for Deborah? All right. Well, thank you for being here. I see no opponents. Any other questions before we close the hearing? All right. So that's close the hearing on House Bill 2049. And I'd like to work 2049. I did check with the revisor this morning before we came in that we've modified this, that we have it exactly right, that the House, that there's no reason why we couldn't put this House bill on the consent calendar. So if there's any discussion on this or a motion, I would be happy to entertain. I saw Senator Thompson's hand.
I was just going to move that we report out substitute for House Bill 2049 as amended favorably for the consent calendar.
Well, I don't think we've amended it.
They had amended it. Okay. Yes. Then I move that we pass that out favorably and place it on the consent calendar.
Yes. And I second from Senator Francisco. Any other discussion? All right, let's vote on that. You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Motion carries. So we send our first and only, well, second bill, if you want to say, of the committee to this consent calendar. So thank you very much for that. That's all we have. Oh, we do have one thing on the bottom of my agenda. The minutes were sent out to you. If you all saw those, or if you're all right with those, could I have a motion to approve the minutes? Senator Dahl makes that motion. Second, Senator Francisco, or Senator Vasquito. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries. Well, we are adjourned.